Welcome to the FullyCrypto podcast.
Hello and welcome to the FullyCrypto podcast, your home of quality cryptocurrency and blockchain news, opinion, analysis, and more. My name is Mark Hunter, and my guest tonight is someone that some of you may recognise, given that he appeared on the FullyCrypto podcast last October to discuss a topic close to both our hearts, Mr. Craig Stephen Wright. I am of course referring to the Witchfinder General himself, Arthur van Pelt. Arthur spoke to us 4 months ago to discuss Wright's checkered past and the reasons behind his growing desperation to be crowned Bitcoin's creator Satoshi Nakamoto. But so much has happened in the crazy world of Craig Wright since then that we thought we'd get Arthur back on to catch us up with what dear old fake Toshi has been up to lately, which is a lot. I hope you enjoy the interview. Hi Arthur, welcome back to the FullyCrypto podcast.
Thank you.
It's our pleasure entirely. You are actually the first guest we've had to come back for a second time, so it's an honour, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Now, the last time we had you back on the podcast in October was a kind of history of Craig Wright, his claims to be Satoshi, that sort of thing. And we didn't think we would need to get you back on for a while after that. But what has happened since then, and particularly in the last 2 or 3 months, has been so crazy. It's just kicked his desires, his aims up a notch. So I thought it'd be great to get you back on and talk about what he's been up to, what it means for the BSV community and the bigger crypto community as a whole.
Yeah, sure.
So we'll start with the Bitcoin white paper power grab, which seems so long ago now because so much has happened since. But I think that was back in January, is that right?
Yeah, I think that's where we see things quickly go, from my angle, go down the drain. I think it's the end game of Craig Wright. He is he's totally losing it. And that started in January with the copyright claims to 3 websites. Now it ended up a bit of a nothing burger because he thought that people would bow for him and delete the upload of the white paper. The 3 parties that I just mentioned were, of course, Bitcoin.org, Bitcoin.com, and BitcoinCore.org, and subsite somewhat of Bitcoin.org where some Bitcoin Core developers have gathered themselves to cooperate and communicate, and there also was a white paper uploaded. And Craig wanted because he does not consider BCH and BTC as the genuine Bitcoin, so he wants the Bitcoin white paper to be deleted from those places. And that ended up exploding bigly in his face because everything from Miami to several countries started hosting the white paper. Individuals, companies, maybe even one of the first, if I remember well. And I can say I also added my 2 cents in the discussion because I sent 2 letters to this council of Craig Wright, telling them that I'm also hosting the white paper and asking their response on that. And when they did not give it, I sent them 2 weeks later another letter with a deadline. And of course, they did not respond to it also. And to summarize, it ended up being a little bit of a nothing burger because Craig later declared that he wanted to the whole world should read the white paper and understand that BSV is the real Bitcoin. So in the end, he didn't do much, which is not completely true because he also sent a letter a bit later to Square. And it looks now that Bitcoin.org, which is run by a guy under the nickname of Cobra Bitcoin, is now maybe going to court. He got a new letter, notifying him that the deadline has passed and that there's possibly more actions taken, and he might be dragged to court.
Oh really? I wasn't aware that. Well, it's again, there's been so much happening that to try and keep up with it all is really, really difficult. So before we get to the kind of the branches of the tree, if you like, we kind of take a step back. For those who maybe don't know the history of Craig Wright and this sort of thing, what would be the advantage of him trying to have these copies taken down, given that they've been on the internet for all these years? Why is he going about doing this now, and what does he hope to gain from it?
For me, at least, a bit hard to understand. Most of it is recognition that he is Satoshi Nakamoto and has the copyright, and also can claim infringement of that copyright. But in the end, he gets the money from Calvin Ayre. I think we discussed that also in our previous conversation. Yeah. And it means that he has to satisfy the needs of Calvin Ayre. And then it's very well possible that Calvin Ayre is now is pushing him now a bit. I want to see results. It's not going very well. You're still not Satoshi and recognized as Satoshi. And now I want to see some more results. And he is funding Craig, of course, from car to house and salary and everything. So, yeah, I can understand that Craig is starting to feel some pressure. And what is his meaning of this? Seriously, I wouldn't know. Yeah, recognition as Satoshi, I would say.
He's just trying to think up any left field thing he can try and do to try and add this claim. And it was weird because he's saying about the copyright infringement. He's saying all these things that he thinks the people are abusing, if you like. But as far as I'm aware, there are no facts backing him up to be saying this. And that's what confused me, is that he was going in saying, I have the copyright to this white paper, you must take it down. Am I wrong, or is there no formal notice of copyright in his name anywhere?
Yeah, no, well, there is, of course. In the United States, in the Copyright Office, he has his registration, his claim as a copyright claimant. But yeah, a handful of people have that, so including the undersigned, actually. So yes. It's kind of meaningless in that sense. On the other hand, you need to have such a registration to be able to do lawsuits and to be recognized as a copyright claimant in court. So in that sense, it was a good action that he did. But yeah, like I said, for the rest, it's kind of meaningless. It does not mean that he has actual copyright. And as far as we can look back, the whole Bitcoin white paper and also the source code and all the code of Bitcoin has been on. It has been an open source project starting at SourceForge. And the white paper has been published on a mailing list of the cypherpunks, the cryptography mailing list, which was part of the cypherpunk environment. And there was an actual no copyright license. That means that if you publish something there, that you you agree with the no copyright rules of the cypherpunks at that moment, and those rules still exist. Now, a bit later, of course, it went to GitHub, and also from the start, it was under the MIT license, which is also open source. And what people forget is that the MIT license is not only for the source code, but also for the associated documentation. And in this case, the Bitcoin white paper is associated documentation of the code. So I have no idea what this guy is thinking, that he will go somewhere in court with these claims.
I mean, it seems to me he doesn't intend to take it that far. My impression is that he's just doing this to try and scare people into submission, because he knows if he goes to court, he hasn't got a leg to stand on. So he's just trying, like you said, trying to use Calvin Ayre's money to threaten them to stand down.
I think behind all those scammery, there's always a monetary reason why people do things. And in this case, the copyright thing there is not, for me at least, not visible, a direct monetary reason that he is doing this. It's only costing him money. I mean, these lawyers that he has to be paid. So in a direct sense, he will not get money from the outside world going his way. The second thing that we're going to discuss a bit later is, of course, a different story. But this copyright thing is only recognition, and I cannot see anything else. And recognition mostly from Calvin Ayre, who is paying him.
I mean, yeah, it seems like it's basically a piece of the puzzle he's trying to put together, which he hopes is going to give him a more sort of sound footing when it comes to all his various legal battles. Because if he can go in and say, look, I told them who I was and they backed down, he's going to try and use that as evidence that they recognized he's Satoshi.
Yeah, but let's be honest, it's quite desperate.
We've said this before, he's a very desperate man because, I mean, I hadn't quite figured it from the Calvin Ayre kind of putting pressure on him angle, but that makes absolute sense. I thought it was him just getting desperate. But if Calvin Ayre said, look, you've got this year to do it or the money goes away, then he's got to move quickly.
No, what is remarkable about Calvin Ayre, it's not that, not that long ago, in the whole history, not that long ago, about 1 year, let's say 1.5 years, Calvin Ayre started to make little remarks on the internet, on Twitter mostly, where we found him saying that in 2021 he probably would not be needed anymore in BSV because it should have been a big success by now, recognized as the real Bitcoin by now, including Craig Wright being recognized as Satoshi. And he would step back from the whole thing. That is what he announced and hinted to a few times over, I think roughly 1.5 years ago. As we all know, that did not happen. BSV is not a success. BSV dropped from number 5 about 1 year ago on the market cap list to outside the top 20. Yeah, that's not a success. The reputation has gone downwards. The hash rate has gone downwards. The number of nodes has gone from 650 to between 180 and 190 currently. It's going nowhere. So yeah, let's call it the sunk cost fallacy for Calvin. Yeah, he needs to get some return on investment by now, I guess.
I think he does. He's put a lot into it. So taking that as the situation, then we suggest that it's part of this puzzle that Craig Wright's trying to put together to kind of give himself a bit more of a grounding in the idea he is the Bitcoin creator. We then move on to what happened a few weeks ago, which was the pre-trial hearings for the Wright versus McCormack case, which has been in the works for a couple of years now. Can you, again, remind our listeners, for those that may not be aware, because it's, again, been a couple of years back and he's got so many lawsuits going on, what is the basic kind of overall aim of this particular court case?
Yeah, that 2 years ago, in early 2019, Craig Wright started several libel cases, a number of 5. 3 of them were either abandoned, discontinued, closed, and even in 1 or 2 cases he paid even the cost of the defendant in that case. So those people escaped Craig's anger about him being called a fraud. But 2 remained. One of them was Hodlnaut. The other one is Peter McCormack, a very well-known podcaster in the space. Hodlnaut is also still ongoing. Hodlnaut quickly countersued him from Norway, where he lives, also still ongoing. But Peter McCormack is coming somewhat to a closure now, because last year, I think that was around the time that we spoke, you and I, Peter said, I'm not going to play this game anymore. I don't have funding anymore. I cannot do this anymore. He's probably, but as far as I can see, also a little bit emotionally stressed under the whole thing, and he wants to continue with his life without the burden of this lawsuit. He aimed high, actually, because he actually asked for that lawsuit back in 2019. Sue me. He asked or demanded almost on Twitter to Calvin and Craig, but which happened then back then. And at some point last year, Peter said, "No, I'm going to stop this. I don't want this anymore." That meant that he was supposed to go further in the lawsuit alone, without any counsel anymore. But that situation changed over time. what I understood now, he does still have his counsel who is supporting him. Because last weeks or 2 weeks ago, that indeed the pre-trial hearings were including his counsel. So I think they found a modus of being funded still, or they do it. I think it's also in English called pro bono.
Pro bono, yeah.
Yeah. So or yeah, some kind of a deal like that. No win, no fee, or yes, or pro bono, something like that. It must be.
So from the pre-trial hearings, what did you glean from those 2 days as to where it goes from here?
Now, they were supposed to give some last summaries on paper, both parties, what I understood. I could not follow both days. The second day I followed mostly. I was out for a bit also, so I had to. I could not follow everything, but I tried to read up on the internet from other people who were following it. And what I understood is that they needed to write a summary, because even for this judge, it was a bit of a complicated case. So he asked both parties to write a summary that should have been delivered to court last Wednesday. And then he was already writing a ruling of some judgments that he needed to do, some I don't know all the English words for it, but there were several points that he needed to rule upon, and those he had already started writing that, but he still needed that summary to do the whole ruling, and those set of rulings that he wanted to needed to write, also included, are we going to do a full trial, a multi-day trial? So we don't know yet if that multi-day trial is being ruled as that it will take place. We don't know yet.
So the case could be decided by this judge, and then we don't even go to the court case.
I think technically that is possible. That is a kind of a default or summary judgment. But to be fair, I hope there will be a trial, because that will include a hearing of Craig Wright himself, and in this case, luckily not by Peter McCormack alone, because I think he would not survive that emotionally, probably. So a specialized lawyer asking questions to Craig would do more harm, I think, to the whole thing. And what was remarkable, as a little detail in this case, what has been dropped from the case is that the what I would call the truth-finding part. You might remember that Craig dropped, and now the numbers are changing all the time, because I read 9,000 and I read 30,000. So, but at least it are quite a few thousands of documents have been dropped in on the lap of Peter McCormack. But that was supposed to be for truth findings. See, this is my proof to you that I am Satoshi, and debunking all that stuff would have cost hundreds of thousands, if not millions, and probably that's where it stopped for Peter, and it would take quite a long while longer also to do all that. Now, those documents have been taken back, or at least that truth funding part has been cancelled from the whole case. So the whole case is basically now, have you been defamed? Have you had harm on your reputation? And if so, what penalty? Because Craig asked, I think, 100K in Great Britain pounds as a fine for that. And if the judge will agree with that or not. That's now basically the case. And if you ask my opinion, Peter has a good chance to win, actually, because although the liberal laws in the UK might not be the most, not the best for the defendant in this case, Peter, but on the other hand, it's quite clear that Craig had no reputation at all at the moment that Peter was tweeting out those liberalist statements. That became quite clear. That was pretty cool to listen to on that second day, because that was, let's say 90% of the time it was Peter's lawyer talking, And they mentioned a lot of articles from Wired and Gizmodo back in 2015 and what happened after that. And it was already, it became quite clear what this lady told the judge, that, Craig has been, he did not have a reputation to start with. That was already ruined from 2015-16 when he failed to prove that he is Satoshi.
Yeah, and I wonder if it's something to do with Craig Wright as a person. I wonder if with this particular case he is himself kind of muddying the waters a bit. I mean, I wonder if he's almost forgotten what the nexus of this case is. It's not about him being the Bitcoin creator. It's not about his claims and this sort of thing. It's literally about whether he materially or reputationally was damaged by what Peter McCormack said. And I haven't seen the evidence, I don't know, but I find it very difficult to imagine how he's going to prove that he lost business, he lost contracts, he lost face as a result of this one particular tweet. And I wonder if he's just taken his eye off the ball and he's built it up to be much more than it is.
Yeah, I think there was a big hope that he would get some type of a ruling, that he would be mentioned as Satoshi Nakamoto in the court papers, so they could spin it in the direction with CoinGeek and a few of those BSV-friendly scam outlets. They would at least try to spin it as, see, he is Satoshi, because even the judge calls him Satoshi. But the fact of the matter is that will not happen. There is not even a ruling coming close in the Peter McCormack case. It isn't. The Hodlnaut case will probably different, not in the UK, but in the Norway one. Because if I understood well, there will be a somewhat of a truth, what I call truth finding part in the lawsuit. Look, it was not libelous that Hodlnaut called him a fraud, because for this and this and this reasons. So I expect also a lot of detailed information there of all the fraud and all the forgeries and all the lies that that Craig has been unleashing on our globe.
I can't wait, and I agree with you. I would love to see Craig Wright take the stand against a really skilled barrister. They would pull him apart.
I'm sure, but the complicated thing about Craig is his story. Not his claim to be Satoshi does not change, but all the details and all the proof behind it, all the forgeries, they change. I mean, look at the Tulip Trust story. We are now already in Tulip Trust 3 in the climate case. And just a few days ago, I came across a guy who is now claiming that he knows another list. In my mind, I already call it Tulip Trust number 4, because as far as we know, Craig is supposed to have, claiming to have roughly 1 million in BTC, which is in this Tulip Trust construction somewhere hidden in encrypted files with Shamir secret schemes and etc. But this guy was no, he not 1 million, no, 4 million. He has 4 million BTC, because he has also been buying BTC in 2011, 12, and 13 OTC over the counter. And he has 3 or 3.5 million more BTC than we ever thought he had. I was like, oh my God, these crazy guys. Where do they get this from? I have no idea. So all these stories, they change every now and then. Just a quick example, his team, his Satoshi team, is also changing all this while. It started with Dave Kleiman and an unknown third person in 2014. Then a few years later, it was, this unknown person was David Rees. Now, David Rees was already called out by the ATO. David Rees, the whole family doesn't even know who Craig Wright is. So David Rees, there was nothing with David Rees going on. So during the climate case, Craig already changed his story to no, it was Dave Kleiman out. No, of course, because it landed him a multi-billion lawsuit for fraud. So of course he did not have that partnership with Dave Kleiman anymore. So yeah, then it was suddenly Donald Linham, his uncle, and some what's the name of the guy? Garrett Williams, some secret agent or something. So it's changing all the time. It's so hard to keep track of all his lies and changing stories.
And the thing is, he can hoodwink the community. He can hoodwink, these guys that are running nodes and what have you. But he can't hoodwink a judge. You can't hoodwink a legal system that demands facts and evidence and will question you about them. And it seems that every time he gets questioned on it, he either glosses over it or gets really affronted and angry that you'd even dare to question him. But if you do that in a courtroom, then you're in double trouble.
Yeah, and that's why I expect these things not to end well for Craig in the end. I mean, they were hopeful at the start, and his community is also hopeful that he will be declared Satoshi at some point. But yeah, I don't see it happen. And the climate is low. The climate case is loaded with forgeries and debunks of lies. It's amazing, and the same will happen in those libel cases of Hodlnot and Peter.
Yeah. Moving on to something that you may have been aware of, but I wasn't aware of. This came out last week, which was the latest round of letters he sent to all these various developers, saying that he was hacked for I forgot how many Bitcoin it was now. It was how much Bitcoin was it? He said he was hacked for last year.
That was a letter that he sent to Blockstream, and Samson Mao posted that last year. That was in June. A notification from his counsel Onche to Blockstream. Look, we just want to notify you that you have your responsibilities in maintaining the Bitcoin network, and because it was in total 110,000 BTC. That is the remaining stash of his bought BTC from 2011. He claims to have bought between 650 and 700,000 BTC. There are no traces whatsoever for these huge amounts of BTC somewhere to be found, but he claimed to have bought that in Russia, whatever. And the remains of that, he used that for his businesses, meanwhile, back in Australia. And the remains are 110,000 BTC, split on two addresses, one of 30 and one of 80,000. Now, that was just a notification to Blockstream. They ignored it. They never did anything. And until recently, nobody ever heard anything about it anymore. While at that moment, it was a multi-billion hack, and it was a bit weird that nobody paid attention to a multi-billion hack from a Bitcoin in the Bitcoin industry.
Mm-hmm.
So probably everybody knows it's fake anyway. But however, what is Craig now doing? A few weeks ago, he started to send not to Blockstream but to individual developers. He started to send notifications that he is now going to start a lawsuit, and he is actually pretty serious because it had been registered in court already. There is a court filing, if I think it's called, for this case, and the plaintiffs and the defendants have been registered in court already. So if you're seriously interested, you could check back the last few days, roughly 1 week, in my feed on Twitter, my legacy kit. In fact, it was the lead of the Kleinman Council, Val Friedman, who figured that out, and he posted on Twitter a screenshot of that filing, because it appears there has been a mistake that one of the BTC developers, Corey Fields, has been mentioned as plaintiff. Pretty weird. If you ask me, a typical Craig Wright sloppy thing. On the other hand, it's also possible that an assistant from the court has been mistyping something from the official paperwork, putting it in the system. So that we don't know that, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But And there were also, of course, several typos in the names. I mean, Peter Wülle was called Wülle, and a few other names were also with typos in the names. But anyway, yeah, it appears that he is now serious about it. And same with that copyright thing. It appears that he is now really chasing Cobra Bitcoin and putting him into court for this copyright thing.
So, with regards to this latest round of letters he sent out, then, am I right in thinking that he wants these developers to fork Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, and Bitcoin SV to somehow roll back the blockchain to February 2020 and give him back his coins? Am I correct in thinking that's what he wants to happen?
Yeah, that's somehow the story. At first, he wants to get a court approval on his statement that the developers, open source developers, should cooperate in those type of demands. So the court will hope, that's what he hopes at least, give him a signature under such a ruling. And the second part of his claim is then, okay, knowing that I am the owner of those two addresses, how he is ever going to prove it, I have no idea, because you probably heard about the story that 80,000 of those Bitcoins have been stolen from Mt. Gox. So that's already a snake pit for him that he will not survive from that angle. But then he hopes to get a ruling that those coins should somehow return to him. Now, if you look at it technically, you can think of roughly two things. Either they have to reorg the chain all the way back to when those addresses were filled with those things, and then they have to move those coins to an address but that is accessible for Craig Wright, where he has a private key. Or they have to, and it's going to be a drama, of course, also, because there will never be consensus for that. Maybe only on the BSV side, and probably that is mostly his aim, that BSV will bow their head for Craig after maybe some bit of we do not agree, but it will end up in a few months they will agree. But what is also possible technically is that they raise the limit for because Bitcoin is going to 21 million in an issuance scheme. But if they make that 21,110,000 in some code, then they can just pre-mine those 110 and give them to Craig Wright.
I mean, to even consider that as a viable possibility, it's almost unconscionable for so many reasons, and I'm sure you're the same. I cannot see it ever getting to that point.
No, I don't see that happen. Also, what I do see happen is that BSV will comply at some point. So they have the new narrative. We are the law-abiding chain. And on the other hand, it will also mean they're dead, because that was not the meaning of Bitcoin. Bitcoin was not meant to be adjustable like this.
So this hack that he says took place, like you, I am staggered that this only ever came out in this letter to Blockstream in June of last year, and it was only vaguely referenced. As far as I understand it, this is a guy who's supposed to be he is a very intelligent guy, very technically minded, but we're supposed to believe that his personal security was so bad that these guys could hack into his computer, steal the wallet and the key, and then delete it from his system, and he didn't realize this happened until afterwards, didn't tell anybody. Is that what we're supposed to believe happened?
Yeah, basically that's it. And he did not have any backups, and he did not store it in a cold storage. He had it on a hot device connected to the internet so they could reach it or something like that. It's inconceivable, as the judges in the climate case would say. Inconceivable.
It really, really is. And then, like you said, he has to, first of all, prove he owned the coins. So there's that whole drama of him. I don't know how he's, like you said, I don't know how he's going to prove that he owned these coins if he's got no record of anything. He's just going to have to take it on faith.
I think he already made some statements about it, that he said that he can prove it. That means that he is probably having some correspondence and invoices or things like that. Yeah, but knowing how that works with Craig and looking at the ATO reports, how he set up his proof, quote unquote, it's all forgeries. It's all backdated email correspondence. It's all backdated and faked contracts in made on computers with old operating systems with metadata that he adjusts if needed in PDFs and other documents. Because he knows a little bit how those tricks work, but you can put a specialist on it and they will always figure out that, no, sorry, this has been set up in 2017 or 18 or 19 and backdated to 2011. I mean, it has become almost an hobby for several people, including the undersigned. How did he make this forgery? And there has been no proof whatsoever found for his Satoshi claims, for his bought Bitcoins claims, for his mining claims, for his fiber, that he put fiber in the ground in Australia to get the Bitcoin network working in the bush around Banyu, where he had a little cow shed. So yeah, I think there has been mentioned, I think in one of the letters of Ontier, or I must have picked it up on Twitter. There must be a police report. I mean, that's where it starts. When he has been hacked early last year, the first thing you have to do is go to the police and report. And I think it was mentioned in one of those letters of Ontier to those developers that indeed some police organization in the UK is on the case about it. Now, yeah, he is not. Craig is seriously not afraid to do these things and to lie to the police and to make up fake reports. He did exactly the same back in early 2014, if I do recall correctly, in the MJF mining case, where he said and claimed that some, I don't know, remember 50 million or 80 million, but a pretty large amount of money was stolen from him from a company called MJF Mining that he sent Bitcoin to, and he was supposed to get software and gold back, which never happened. And he just went to the police. I've seen the official police reports in the Kleiman case about that story. And the ATO researched it in 2014, 15, and 16, and they concluded, sorry, Craig, never happened. It's all a nullity based on sham. That's what we can expect here also. Those 110K in Bitcoin has never been bought by Craig. And the clearest indication that we already have before anything is that those 80,000 have been robbed and stolen from Mt. Gox in 2011 in March.
What was the response? Because I believe that Ontier addressed this in the letters. They kind of preempted this. What was their excuse as far as that went?
The proof of being stolen is not super duper clear because for us insiders it's pretty clear, but for let's call it a casual onlooker, it's less clear, because those 80,000 has never been listed by the trustee of the Mt. Gox bankruptcy case as being on the list of assets, or assets to claim or assets to recover. So as far as we know, it's not on their list. it means that we can only fall back on what the people involved, what's his name, Jet McCaleb and Mark Karpeles, tell us about it, and what proof they show for that. And of course, when you look at how the blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain works, you can trace those transactions, what happened back then, and you can trace the Skyblogs and how they communicated back then in the because it happened in the period when Jet McCaleb sold Mt. Gox to Mark Karpeles, who started it in March. And during the handover, this hack happened. And they have been talking about this hack online. And that chat log still exists and has been used in another court case in, I think, America, if I'm right. I don't know the details behind it, to be honest. But yeah, it has been used as official proof already. And it has not been debunked as a forgery, that chat log. So the whole world and the cat and the mouse and the goldfish accept it as a true story, except Craig. Craig says, no, I bought that from a Russian exchange and it was handed over to me. I got the private keys for that address, and it was set there, presumably by that Russian exchange. So it is one story against the other story, one story without proof and the other story with a lot of proof, which is known for years.
So we're supposed to believe that, again, this guy that knows Bitcoin inside out will know what happened with Mt. Gox, went to Russia or dealt with these Russians to buy this wallet, to get the private keys to this wallet, and didn't know or didn't think to check where these 80,000 Bitcoin came from. He wasn't in the least suspicious that, just as Mt. Gox has been hacked a few months earlier, that this wallet contains all this Bitcoin.
The story is actually that the Mt. Gox hack, he just completely denies the whole existence of any hack at all. He says in February, I have been contacting, he already asked for those Bitcoins, and they were put in on his wallet, that one fix address. So there was not a hack. He just denies that there was ever a hack. Yeah. There are memes floating around on Twitter of indeed cartoon villains with those tiny mustaches with a twist and a twirl on at the end, smirking.
Yeah.
That is the type that is Craig Wright. It's a crazy guy, but again, that's a bit of the sad part for me. I do pity currently the community of BSV. To be fair, there is a lot of turmoil going on. The people are not. I know the Dutch word for it is trekken het niet meer. They don't have the energy anymore to keep up. It's too much. It's getting too much now for several people. And you see a lot of turmoil going on, a lot of criticism, people leaving the community, selling their BSV. And so you see only the hardcore believers, the inner, what I would call the inner circle around Craig and Calvin. They remain, they still believe in it, but on the outer circles, it's crumbling apart fast now. It's a pretty large community. It's hundreds, if not a few thousand people on the hate and on the top of their popularity, which was roughly a year ago when the bonded courier story came up, and the price spiked pretty hard. I think it went 4 or 5 times in a short while about a year ago. But after that, it has been dropping like a slide in where children slide off on the playground. And it has become too much. I noticed that. Especially when that was roughly, I think it was in January already, when he started to rant and really explode. Every now and then he does that. The fuck yous and whatever. He can be quite expressive in that sense, but now it's becoming. I mean, I'm not a specialist. I'm not a psychologist or whatever. But you just read and you can sense the tense, the stress, and the lunaticity. I don't know how that is called in English.
Lunacy.
Yeah, the lunacy, the craziness of the situation. He's losing it. When he is that was around the copyright letters that he started sending. And he called it nuclear Armageddon, and I'm the god of cryptocurrency. I'm sent by God and to punish the cryptocurrency community or something. Page after page after page, not just once, but a handful of times, more than handfuls of times. I will make the deafs go broke, and I will make them live on the street, and whatever craziness he was. If you talk like that, you are a cult leader on the edge of going into what I call the Jonestown phase. Now, you probably know what is Jonestown, the Jim Jones cult, and it ended up after a few years that all those people committed suicide. Well, I hope that will not happen in this case, of course, but it will implode. It's close to implosion, and I think it's going to happen this year. I already expected it last year. Took a bit longer, mostly because of the corona delays in Kleiman, because I was hoping that Kleiman would also push him down a bit, because I expect some fireworks there also in the rulings there. But yeah, that was postponed 5, 6, 7 times because of those corona rulings and orders there.
When are we due a ruling on that? What's the latest with that case?
For Kleiman?
Yeah.
It will be June now.
Okay.
If it's not postponed again. But in June, they're going to have the jury trial for, I think, 2 weeks in Miami.
Do you know what? I would not want to be a jury member, because they're going to be so confused.
Yeah, but at least I think it is pretty clear in the end. They can be confused, but as long as Kleiman's counsel keep feeding them with the examples that has been piling up and piling up and piling up during the whole case of all the fraud and lies and conflicting statements and perjurious declarations that he written over time in that case. I mean, it's all there, and they will read it over those weeks. They have to dive into this case, and they will see the same things that the judges has been noticing also all this while. So I expect them to come to the same conclusions that Bloom and Reinhardt, the both of the judges, had already reached, that he willfully created those forgeries himself. Reinhardt noting in one of his rulings, in one of his orders, he gave perjurious testimony in my presence.
Yeah.
Shock. Well, not a shock for us.
Not if you know him.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I think we'll leave things there, Arthur. It's been great to catch up with you, and great to get your opinion on what's been a crazy. I can't believe it's only been 2 months since he kind of started on this next kind of leg of whatever the hell this is. It's crazy. It's happened so much so quickly, and I am sure that we will be in touch with you as this year progresses. And I think there's going to be some, as you say, there's going to be some big judgments coming up and some big developments. And I'd love to get you back on to discuss those as and when they happen.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, anytime. You know how to reach out to me and Peter McCormick. There might be things going on in the upcoming weeks. And and Kleiman will hopefully also be a killer ruling in June. Let's hope it's not going to be postponed again. Yeah. But looking forward.
Great stuff. Thanks very much, Arthur. Speak to you soon.
Hey, thank you, Mark. Bye.
My thanks to Arthur van Pelt for once again taking our hands and guiding us through the poisonous rose garden that is the strange world of Craig Wright. If you like this interview, you can find plenty more on your podcast platform of choice, where you can also enjoy our light-hearted weekly crypto news roundups. If you would care to subscribe, we'd greatly appreciate it, and if you do, don't forget to have your alerts turned on so you're notified the moment the next truth bomb drops. Thanks for listening, and I'll speak to you again soon.